Erev Tov Chaverim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and of course this will be the last evening we broadcast here tonight as we're getting ready to make the trip to Nashville, Tennessee. We'll be broadcasting from Nashville tomorrow night, actually Lebanon, Tennessee to be more precise, at the conference that will be speaking there Friday and Saturday. Friday night, the doors open at 6 p.m. at HPC Center. Just so you guys know how to do that, let me just jump over here real quick. Just type in hpccenter.com. If you haven't registered, hey, it's not too late. I believe that there are still some seats available. The conference, the doors open tomorrow at 6 p.m. The meeting begins at 7. I'll be speaking on the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, that particular time frame of season, some fascinating insights on how that plays out biblically and where we are when it comes to Yom Kippur. And then on Shabbat, on Saturday, the doors will open at 9 a.m. The first meeting will begin at 10 a.m. This is where I'll be going into the past that I worked in the intelligence community with the U.S. government and just how sinister of a past that is. Something I'm sure those of you that will be attending, it will be an eye-opener. It'll really let you know what goes on in politics, how that the CIA and behind the scenes very much involved, at least in the part that I was involved in, the different illegal things that are taking place on a very large scale. Money laundering, weapons transfers, different things like that go on, how politicians are involved even in the money laundering, multimillionaires, etc., and cover-ups all the way to the White House. That's certainly to be an interesting broadcast there. We're also listed as 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., but I believe we're going to be adding a 5 p.m. Meeting in there as well. My wife will be speaking with two different messages, one on 5G technology and another one as well on standing with Israel. And of course, I will also be wrapping up with the second message that day myself with the connections that I've had with different other groups as time has gone by in life, including friends in the Mossad, as well as the evangelical movement and their desire to take us to a new world order. Those friendships that I've had with people in the UN, as well as some very other interesting things that I'm sure will no doubt open your eyes and make you think about things a little bit different. So you can register for that conference still. You just go to the website hpccenter.com, or you can go to israelinewslive.org. You'll see on the right-hand column of our website just the link to get there. For some reason, that's a little bit difficult to get on there. I don't know what the seating capacity is as of now that is left, but I would imagine there's still some seats available, maybe 30, 40, something like that. So if you'd like to come, certainly invite you out there, and I no doubt it'll be a blessing to you. Let's get right into what's happening in the world. I know everybody hates CNN. I know that's on a normal basis, but the only reason I'm pulling this up is because the CNN is reporting Pentagon questions presence of Russian warships off the Syrian coast. They're talking about a dozen Russian warships off the Syrian coast, but it's actually 25 warships. Russia, after the Vostok drill that was conducted in the Mediterranean, are going to stay in the Mediterranean, and we have that from some interesting sources that we have found in the Russian language. But yes, there's 25 ships that are there. That includes submarines off the coast of Syria. It is making the Pentagon very nervous, especially because the Pentagon, no doubt, is still planning on launching some type of attack against Damascus to overthrow the country, because they're just not going to give in on that pipeline that they need to come through the country. And some of the information that I continue to get out of Israel about this pipeline is that not only would Haifa be a port, but also there is a possibility now, can't say for sure, that Caesarea may also be a port. There are some interesting things that have been happening, but then again, that also may be of a oil gas pipeline coming out of the Mediterranean that would service part of Israel. So we're not really sure if that's going to be the case or not. But the Haifa port in Israel has been undergoing a major transformation. So that kind of leads us to believe that indeed Israel is very much in need to see the pipeline come through their own port as well to service other parts of the world, no doubt including the United States, especially South America. And I say this because if we notice, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made more friendships with South America than he even has with the United States and Canada, which makes me kind of wonder if we're not going to end up in some type of disastrous situation in the U.S. After this Syrian conflict. But anyway, moving right along, Murad Gazdiev on his own Twitter page here, he has really shared some very interesting footages from the Vostok, over here at the Vostok drills there. And he notes in there, of course, which is already public knowledge, and you can just see the swarm of tanks and military equipment as far as the eye can see. It's just absolutely shocking to see this much military equipment. Tanks, I think there's 36,000 tanks and different types of vehicles that are used for war that he has spoke about in some of the footages that he's done there. He speaks also, of course, 1,000 military planes were involved in these drills. And of course, China also, as you can see by their flag there, China is showing off their own military equipment in this drill. They came to be a part of it. And to me, it's actually a show that Russia is not alone in any type of battle they may face, potential battle that they could face with the West. And of course, a lot of this is happening in the eastern part of the country, which also kind of makes me wonder. I mean, there are a lot of drills in the West as well. Both sides of the country, massive drills are going on with Russia. But I think it also sends a message about North Korea because there's been some backtracking on that. The U.S. has been saying that North Korea is back into working with their nuclear facilities once again, so I can just imagine that derailing. And speaking of those issues there possibly derailing, let me share with you another interesting article. And that's actually, I wasn't going to do it in this order, but I'll do it this way now. On ria.ru, a Russian news site there, Putin offered Tokyo peace. Why did the Japanese minister, Mr. Abe, why did he refuse? President Putin was actually there for, I think it was a 22nd meeting that they've had together. And he finally just come right out. He says, look, why don't we just go ahead and make a peace agreement now by the end of the year, and we'll iron out our differences as we go. Now, some people say that Russia and Japan are still at war, but that's actually not true. According to the article here, back, I think it was in 1955, they did agree to end their war officially between the two countries, but the islands to the north are still disputed. 4 of the islands are disputed, where the Japanese were expelled from the islands, where they had a sizable number of people living there. And of course, that's been a dispute ever since then. But I think the reason why, because the Japanese Prime Minister didn't answer the president right off, but after a little time of reflecting, he comes back and says that he just can't do it. Now, that's after consulting with, no doubt, the United States. And the U.S. is not going to allow Japan to have any type of peace agreement with Russia, because in the event the U.S. gets into any type of conflict with North Korea, then they need Japan as a staging point for that war, and which could also involve Russia. If Japan and Russia were to make an agreement together, well, you know what that would do? That would mean that, one, North Korea is not going to lob bombs over at Japan, which would help Japan in that respect. But it would also mean that the United States is not going to be able to conduct a war on North Korea from their island. So in reality, the peace agreement would actually help the Japanese. But that's just not going to happen, is it? Nope, sure isn't. Deep State's not going to allow that whatsoever. Going back into other issues as well, the Daily Star is reporting about the French minister who actually, it says, the assault on Syria's Idlib risks scattering terrorists abroad. Now, if that's not an open acknowledgement that Idlib is nothing but crawling with terrorists, I don't know what there is. But the French minister actually spoke about this in this article here. He warned that this offensive by the Syrian government would cause terrorists to be spread all over into other regions of the world. Oh, I get it. Just let them stay in Syria. Let the Syrian people have to deal with it and nobody else. But it is interesting to see that he actually admitted this, which is something that the West should take note to, that it's not that it's just some peaceful place in Idlib, is some wonderful utopia that has been painted by Western media, that it's a bunch of innocent civilians living there and that Assad is just going to go in there and kill all the kids again. It's very interesting how that can be painted in our own media when the truth of it just doesn't exist. Also, the army of the Tsar has the right to respond to aggression of Western coalition, the senator believes. It's an article in the Russian language as well. Again, RIA, a Russian news source there, says Syrian troops have the right to shoot down missiles and their carriers if the Western coalition strikes a blow at the territory of the country. If the attack affects the Russian units, there will be an immediate response. First Deputy Head of International Committee on the Council of the Federation, General of the Federal Security Service, Vladimir Yoborov, told the RIA Novosti on Wednesday. Now, this definitely, it kind of shows a couple of things here. One, they realize if Syria gets involved and Syria is struck, they're not going to tell Syria they can't shoot back at the target that is firing the weapons. But it also kind of gives us a hint that Russia's not necessarily going to intervene if their troops and their equipment is not hit. Now, you can count on one thing. The United States is very accurate at not striking Russian targets. But what happens if Turkey knocks down a few Russian targets in the process? We know that when Israel was striking inside of Syria, Israel was definitely hitting Russian targets as well in one of the videos that was released by Israel. But the question is could you say that was technically belonged to Russia, or was it operated by the Syrian military, and so therefore Russia did not consider that a hit on Russian equipment? Can't really say how that would play out, but nonetheless, this is a very volatile situation, but it also shows that Russia may allow the coalition once again to pound Syria without retribution. Maybe Russia's only showing a sign of force, but not really willing to back it up. I guess we'll find out when all the dust settles. Anyway, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. We apologize for the volume yesterday on our little short broadcast. I forgot that I actually had a microphone attached to the, I was using my phone to be able to do the recording of just a quick message there, and forgot that the microphone was attached. If I had just had that with me, would have had a much better audio. So we'll certainly remember to use that next time the proper way so we don't have any issues for you guys on that end there. Do pray for us in our travels. Pray for our family as well. But we should be there sometime in the morning in Lebanon, Tennessee. And we look forward to meeting those of you that will be there at that meeting. And we also want to take the time as well to thank Brother Mark and Sister Susan for hosting this meeting for us there in Lebanon, Tennessee, and the entire congregation that is there at the HPC Center. And that's just really a blessing that they opened their doors to us at Hunters Point Celebration Center. And so we really look forward to coming and fellowshipping with you guys there. And those of you that are coming in from different places, we also pray for you and traveling mercies for you as you make your way to this event. Maybe some are traveling this evening, and if you're in your cars, we certainly ask that God be with you. And of course, we look forward to meeting many of you tomorrow evening as well. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live, Erev Tov.